Yes, everybody, and welcome back to TarHeelIllustrated.com. I'm Jacob Turner. Joining me, as he always does, our very own publisher, Andrew Jones. And as promised, at least if you watch the Elliot Cadeau transfer portal news podcast, we're here to talk Jalen Washington, as he is another Tar Heel that entered the transfer portal officially on Tuesday afternoon, a guy that started 16 of Carolina's 36 games last season, averaging about 16 minutes per game. But again, I want to format this one kind of like the last time. So we'll dive into specifics about why he left a little bit later on. But again, I want to ask you, AJ, I think I already know the answer to this question. But for the people watching, are you at all surprised that a guy like Jay Wash has entered the portal?
No, I'm not. I thought there was a chance he would come back because he loves being at Carolina. He's a loyalty guy. Mm-hmm. And Carolina did him major solid with his knee and having patience with him and rehabilitating his knee. I think where hopefully for guys like Jay Wash, there's a 5th year of eligibility added by the NCAA because he lost a year his first year.
Yeah.
The idea was to go in and just redshirt him. But Carolina, that was the 2013 team that didn't make the tournament, the Pete Nance team. And Carolina went ahead and started playing him some. And I was surprised that happened because originally that wasn't the plan. And other than the Virginia game in Charlottesville and the one after that in Louisville when Armando was hurt, he didn't, and Pete Nance was dealing with the bad back, he didn't play a whole lot. So it was kind of a lost season. And I think for someone like him, if he had 2 years left, maybe he stays and Carolina works with him some more because it's hard to find 6'10" guys with his skill set out there. And he's also a smart player and all that. But there are also some things that have needed work all along that haven't really progressed in his game. And I think that's one of the reasons why he ended up playing, 10 minutes a game or so the last 6 weeks of the season. Because of that, maybe a little more than 10 minutes a game, but it was dependent on Van Allen Lubin's foul situation. If he wasn't in foul trouble, Jay Wash wasn't going to play a whole lot. Mm-hmm. So at the end, no. I talked to him in the locker room in Milwaukee after the Ole Miss game, and he said he hadn't really thought about it, and he really wanted to think about his teammates and stuff like that. But I got the vibe that he had no choice but to look into the portal because I thought, and I said this when we did a podcast, you and I did one after the game that we ran, Saturday night, Sunday morning about who's going to come back and stuff. I mentioned guys I thought would be recruited over. And even if they wanted to return, they were going to be forced basically to not come back. Not that they're told to leave, but we're going to recruit over you. We've got to go out and get a 25-minute a game, 6'11" guy. That kind of thing. I think Jay Wash is one of those guys. I think that a new player can coexist more with Van Allen Lubin than perhaps with Jay Wash. He would be the odd man out because Lubin passed him by justifiably. And the next guy would have come in and automatically be ahead of him. I mean, how far down the pecking order would Jay Wash have gone with 1 year of eligibility left? Possibly 2 if the 5th year is approved. So I think he was in a position where it's kind of a no-brainer. Mm-hmm. You and I talked the other day when we weren't recording about how I thought he was one of the guys that's going to get recruited over. Mm-hmm. And I would be stunned if he's in a Carolina uniform simply because I think he loves UNC. I don't think there's that many hard feelings. But for Carolina to become elite again, which is what this offseason is about, was it going to happen with Jay Wash and Lubin at the post? Probably not. And Hubert had a very honest conversation with Jay Wash. He understands that. So he could go somewhere else, start fresh. And there's a lot of schools out there that will love to have a guy like him play him 30 minutes a game and he'll produce. He'll be very good for him. But I just don't think at this point in time, given what Carolina needs in the post, that he would probably be the right guy to marry yourself to for next season along with Lubin. It would be more of the same, and they can't afford that.
No, they can't. No, they especially look, like you said, what Carolina's trying to get back to, which we'll talk a lot more about this offseason. But let's just explore this for a second. Let's talk about why maybe it didn't work out for Jay Wash in the long run. You mentioned his injuries in high school. That obviously played a big factor. A guy who came in and was just trying to get healthy and, hadn't really played basketball in a while because of those injuries. And then you fast forward to where we are now. And again, 5.7 points per game last year, 4.2 rebounds, second on the team in block shots. So he had a good thing in that perimeter or in that statistical category. But, I think the biggest thing with him, and I'm not talking any rocket science when I say this, I think he's just a guy that struggled with physicality, AJ. And I don't know if he is and can become physical enough to be, like you said, what Carolina needs at this level currently. Could he potentially be a role player that comes off the bench a little bit and gives you some minutes? Yeah, maybe. But again, is that really what Carolina needs right now? I'm not sure it is. So I hate those injuries happened to him in high school too. And I know that I'm not, saying that's, maybe why he hadn't panned out as much as people thought at Carolina. But of course, it didn't help. It didn't help for sure. So to see where he's at now, I do agree. I think it's best for both parties. But for me, it's just that physicality element that just, especially after watching him this year, AJ, when the opportunity was there, he just didn't take it.
One of the biggest differences for RJ Davis this season as opposed to last season, and I wrote this in a thing about him, where it took a while for him to adjust not having a screener help him get shots. Armando was a great screener. Now, Jay Wash wasn't. He got an illegal screen foul about every game. Mm-hmm. So RJ had to spend a good chunk of the season trying to figure it out himself. When he finally did, he shot over 40% from three. He became RJ again. And I'm discussing Jay Wash here. Jay Wash needed to be that screener, and he wasn't. And in the postseason, we're right next to the floor, right on the floor, media. I watched him a lot. And there's this term in football where a quarterback has happy feet when he kind of feels the pocket closing some. Yeah. And bad stuff happens. When Jay Wash would approach a screen, he had happy feet. The little pitter patter of the feet. And that's because, and therefore he never got set. He struggled setting screens because, as you said, he struggled with the physicality. He just wasn't a guy that embraced that. He's a very skilled finesse player. I actually think he's a 4 more than a 5.
Oh, yeah.
Because of that. And I never understood why Hubert never played him at the 4 with Lubin at the 5. You can have a taller 4 than you do 5. It happens. It's because you have to play guys. Jay Wash can hit the 3. He proved that later this year. He struggled for a while, but I also think his mind was a mess for a while. Oh, yeah. It's a very, very good shooter. He's an outstanding mid-range jumper. He could have been a back screen baseline guy, but he wasn't. They never put him out there, never tried that because he's 6'10" with a 7'3" wingspan. He's got to play the 5. I don't think that best utilized his skills. He's got the physicality of a 3 or a 4, not a 5, but he's got the body of a 5. So the screening thing was a big deal to me. Lubin eventually was a better screener than Jay Wash, and that was an important part. But they went away with a lot of that stuff. Lubin was also better at rolling to the basket. But by the time that they utilized a lot of that was when Jay was playing a lot at the 4 and was hitting 3s. So there was more room for Lubin. Lubin benefited from Hubert finally just sticking with Jay Wash at the 4 and him hitting 3s. Lubin benefited with the middle opening up a little bit more. Yeah. When Jay Wash was the starter, and then they had Drake at the 4, and then sometimes even Ian at the 4, Jay Wash didn't benefit from the middle opening up that much. So he was affected by that. So in the end, they know what kind of player he is. And I just don't think that if you're going to be a number 1 seed next year, having him as one of your primary bigs down low was probably going to work. They decided to go another direction. And I think a full valuation, this is where having a GM is, you look at your team and say, okay, who on this team do we need to recruit over in order to become a number 1 seed? There's a club right down the road that did this a year ago, and a guy named Roach left. And that pained a lot of people over there. And from a media standpoint, it's sad to see a guy like that leave his program because he was synonymous with that program. But the program with the GM in place and the full vetting and the full honesty said, look, we've got to be better than this. And we don't project that we're going to be better with certain parts remaining in place. Carolina is in the process of doing the same thing right now, and I think that's why Jalen Washington's in the portal. If everything were Dean Smith utopian, he'd be back, he'd have a role, and he'd be happy, and he'd move on. Mm-hmm. But it's a different era now. And I think that this is more of an indication of that than Elliot Cadeau leaving is.
Yeah. Who are you more surprised about, Jay Wash or Cadeau? Because for me, I think Cadeau, I was a little bit more surprised about, but there's not, for me personally, there wasn't much of a difference in that.
I think because you can find a replacement for Jay Wash in the portal more easily than you can for Cadeau.
That's a good point.
It's going to be tricky finding one for Cadeau simply because he's so talented and at times breathtaking. Jay Wash is very skilled wherever he goes. And if he goes to a little bit lower level, he's going to produce some massive numbers. And when R.L. Bynum's tracking the recruits next year, he's going to be running reports, and it's going to be headlined by Jay Wash. He's going to produce a ton wherever he goes. He is a wonderfully skilled basketball player.
Yeah.
And he may not have to be as physical in the Missouri Valley Conference at Indiana State, as an example, as he is in the ACC. But he had to be physical, and Carolina needs to be more physical. You couldn't say, okay, Jay Wash, we're good enough because we're going to live with your skills because they override the physicality. You have to be physical first. Mm-hmm. And this team wasn't physical first enough, especially down low, which is why, and I have a piece coming out, when you look at their defensive numbers against the quad one teams that are in the NCAA tournament, their defensive numbers are atrocious this season. Atrocious. They average giving up 91 points a game to those clubs in 11 games. In their other 26 games against the non-quad one NCAA tournament opponents, they gave up 67.8 points. This isn't about replacing people and being really good. This is about being elite. Mm-hmm. Can you be elite with Jay Wash playing 15, 20 minutes a game? I don't think they believe that they could, which is why this is happening. You've got to improve what you do against those quad one teams. I actually think for the future of North Carolina basketball, the schedule they played this year gives them the greatest barometer of what they have, because they now know, they learned unequivocally they are not in the same class as those teams.
Yeah.
In those 11 games, they led for a total of 33 minutes. They were totally outclassed. Okay, why were we outclassed? Here are the different reasons that they have, and they have to address. Now that those reasons are identified, they have to address each one. Mm-hmm. Must address it at the top, which is point guard, must address it in the middle and the post. And I think that's what we learned Tuesday.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right about that, man. Very, very well said. And I think we can wrap this one up. I think we've talked about this one enough, and make sure you guys go watch the Elliot Cadeau Portal podcast after this as well. I've been Jacob Turner. He's been Andrew Jones. Very, very quickly. AJ, I want to see how quickly I can do this, right? You ready? Let's do it. 3, 2, 1. Guys, we are giving away free subscriptions to TarHeelIllustrated.com. All you have to do is subscribe here on YouTube, hit the notification bell as well. Go to Twitter, follow us, trying to hit 40,000 followers over there as soon as we possibly can, and go to Facebook. We're trying to hit 15K now. It was 12,000. It's now 15,000. Go over there and like that. We'll be giving away some free subscriptions to TarHeelIllustrated.com. Tom, that was pretty good.
We're already going to give away some because we hit the 12,000. Mm-hmm. I'm going to add another one when we get to 15. That's all.
Yeah, that was in my head, but I didn't want to say it.
Have some patience. I'm going to get to that hopefully tomorrow. I've just been swamped.
Oh, you've been traveling, man. You can get it.
Yeah, I couldn't get back. I couldn't change my flight. I didn't get back from Milwaukee till Monday, and we're doing portal stuff. And you know what I did in the hotel room Sunday. I mean, I wrote, I think I may have set a record for most articles written in advance for stuff that may happen just in the history of mankind. Yeah. And that's something we didn't have to do 5 years ago.
No.
But you got to do it now. Mm-hmm. Coming and going.
It's crazy.
You know, some of them you got to write 3 different articles. because they have 3 options. So crazy times.
It is, man. It really, really is. But we're going to go ahead and get out of here. We appreciate everybody as always. I'm sure we'll be seeing you guys again soon on some form of podcast. I wouldn't be surprised.
I got a lot of drops coming too, by the way.
I know, man. Yeah, good point.
There are 4 areas, specific areas that must be addressed in the portal. And I'm going to run 4 separate drops. We're going to maybe run one tonight. We may run them in this Saturday at this point because we got so much stuff going on. But I'm going to do each thing that must be addressed as a separate pod drop. So it's going to be sort of a 4-part daily drop series type of thing.
I like it. I'm looking forward to hearing those. So yeah, y'all stay tuned for that as well. That's why you subscribe and hit that notification bell so you know every single time it comes out. Appreciate you guys as always. We'll see y'all next time. Thanks.